We have some breaking news for you. Qatari officials say that an agreement has been reached, an agreement to extend the ceasefire, the truce between Israel and Hamas for another 2 additional days.
The announcement comes on the final day of a 4-day truce between the two sides at war. Hamas says it has agreed to the terms. Israel has not yet confirmed its response, and the full terms of the deal have been disclosed. Israeli officials had previously said it would be open to extending the pause in fighting a day for every 10 hostages that were released. Dozens of Israeli hostages and more than 100 Palestinian prisoners were freed over the weekend. That includes a 4-year-old girl who was the first American to be released.
CBS News correspondent Lilia Luciano joins us now from Tel Aviv with more. Lilia, I know we were anticipating this. There had been a 4-day deal. Today is day 4. Both sides had indicated that they were open to an extension. Both sides benefit in a variety of ways. And Qatar, we should remind people, has been brokering this conversation. What more do we know at this early hour about the terms of this extension?
Well, Tony, from the beginning, this was an option. There was, as part of the deal that was, as you said, brokered by Qatar involving the United States and even Egypt, that for every 10 hostages that Hamas was willing to send back to and give Israel, that they were open to an extra day of a truce or of a ceasefire. And that now we know that has been extended for 2 days. So that means that 20 more Israeli hostages may come back home. We know that the majority of the 50 Israeli hostages and dozens others that were not Israeli nationals that have been released over the past series of days were women, were children, and the expectation is that perhaps now that the list extends beyond these 4 days, that there could be others involved, included in that list, perhaps women who are not mothers of the children held in captivity. There are concerns because the number of children that has been managed between the numbers Hamas has been given, the numbers of people who have been turned over to Israel by the Red Cross, may not be the total number of children suspectedly held by Hamas. So there's still a concern that there may be children that Hamas has not been able to track down, to know where they are. And that was part of the tension and part of the negotiations happening today. Israel saying, you know, you have to return the children. There are, as you mentioned, Abigail was returned, the American hostage, the American-Israeli hostage, earlier or yesterday, but there are at least 2 other women who were expected, or we are still expecting, to either come out today or perhaps in the next several days, who are American citizens as well as Israeli citizens. There are other American citizens. We spoke with the father of one soldier who's an American citizen, double citizenship, and they say, look, we are so happy to see so many hostages or many of the hostages come back home, but we worry because our child is not in that category. So over the next 2 days, we shall see. Are there going to be other women, or are there going to be other elderly people? We've also talked to families of elderly people. One father who is 80 or nearly 80 years old. His children are very concerned for his health. And there are other elderly people, men especially, who are not part of the list. We're still also expecting around 11 hostages to be released today, along with, of course, 33 Palestinians held in Israeli prisons as part of the deal. For every hostage that is released, part of the deal is 3 Palestinians. For the most part, over the last 3 days, it's been women and children. So this is great news for both sides. People receive it with open arms that the fighting is still paused for 2 days, especially among the hostage families, because that increases the hope that their loved ones who have not been released yet might come home sooner rather than after more fighting.
You know, Lilia, one of the aims of Israel in waging this war in Gaza against Hamas has been to release all the hostages, and that's been a complicated process as we learn more about the conditions that the hostages have been held in. And part of the complication is that Hamas is not the only group holding hostages. At a certain point, Hamas signaled or communicated to Qatar that it had to talk to additional groups, sort of subgroups. Do you have any indication, have you been able to find out how many groups there may be, and if in the end of this we're going to have a full accounting of the 240 or so people who went in, whether they come out or not?
There are multiple groups, according to the reporting, and And they're also, according to Qatar, and from the information that has been given to Qatar, some of the hostages might be held by civilians. So Hamas, when the hostages were abducted, could have put some of the hostages in the hands of perhaps families. We have heard some stories of people, or at least one hostage, who was released because of the leaflets that were thrown into the Gaza Strip just weeks ago, and somebody had sent a phone number, had released a phone number, and then that hostage made it into Israel because of some kind of negotiation. This is not my personal reporting. These are things that happened before I got here. But the reality is that the hostages were not all kept together, that there are other groups involved and that were involved in the attacks of October 7th, the Palestinian Islamic Jihad being one of them. And so that might be part of the complications. Also, part of the complications over the weekend was very much tension that came from this. On Saturday, that there was a delay in releasing the hostages because Hamas was saying, look, Israel is not abiding by their terms of the deal. They're not allowing the number of trucks that had been agreed to reach northern Gaza. And of course, we know how desperately aid is needed. Of course, this is Hamas communicating this, but still there are hundreds of thousands of civilians, more than 1.7 million who've been displaced, that desperately need that aid and certainly desperately need the ceasefire. So there have been a lot of points that have taken part in the negotiations and that have delayed the process, halted the process for some time. But now, at this point, we can report that at least there are 2 more days of, we don't call it peace, because both sides have been clear that this is not the end of the war, regardless of how many days Hamas is able to perhaps buy by returning hostages home. But it is some quiet. It is some time for desperately needed aid to get into Gaza and for families of hostages to hope that they'll make it home, as well as the families of the Palestinian prisoners to be released to receive their loved ones back home.
Yeah.
Such good news. We've got this 2-day extension, and I'm sure family members are praying that just continues to extend. Lilia Luciano.